NBA 2K completely changed franchise mode a few years ago when they introduced the Eras mode, and instead of starting in the modern NBA every single time, you could go back and relive different periods in basketball history with the correct teams, uniforms, courts, rules, and even presentation. And it got me thinking, why doesn't college football have something like that? Imagine being able to start a dynasty in the late 90s when the BCS finally arrived, or imagine coaching against Pete Carroll's USC team that was trying to go for a three-peat, or imagine even taking over a program starting right as the 4-team college football playoff began. I think college football has more than enough history, even in the last 25 years, to support an eras mode. So today, I'm going to build what I think those eras should look like. Starting off, if you're going to build an eras mode, there's only one place to start, which is the birth of the BCS era, starting about 1997, 1998, depending on how you look at the calendar year. The reason why this year also works well is while they had college football games coming out, they were called like the Bill Walsh college football game, and I have no idea if the rights of the players were different back then, but the first ever NCAA or EA college football game came out in 1998, or I guess it would have been 1997, but it was 98, which makes it a perfect starting point to try to get those rosters back. Now, I know they'd have to go through a lot of players to get this mode done. If it's possible for 2K to do, I don't see why it's not possible just to get some of those big players from each and every generation. Imagine starting in 98 when you get to play with Miami when they had like Sean Taylor and those other guys on the defense that were causing a mess. There's no transfer portal, obviously, no NIL, old conferences are in play, and recruiting is absolutely completely different. Like I mentioned, there's Miami, there's Florida State, who was good, Nebraska was good in the 90s, and Tennessee won that first ever BCS championship. You get those old uniforms, those old stadiums back from the late 90s and early 2000s. Old rosters would be crazy to play with, and you could try to win a championship with Ohio State in 02-03 again. And once you've experienced the birth of the BCS, it's time for one of the greatest dynasties college football has ever seen, which I kind of mentioned in the intro. It's that USC Dynasty that started in 2003-2004. Pete Carroll comes to USC and wins, I think, 30 straight games with guys like Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, Lendale White, and Troy Polamalu as well. You get old Pac-12 football, and USC, who is going for that three-peat, you can go against them, you can play for them, you could try to get another team in the Pac-12, you could beat Texas and have Vince Young in 2005. The West Coast was dominating college football before we had the SEC dominance, and it would be a lot of fun to get to play with a team like USC, or play against USC even. And that era could end with one of the greatest games we've ever seen, like I mentioned, with Vince Young in Texas being able to beat USC. Speaking of, you can go back to that USC-Texas game, and if you get that far and you're winning 30 straight games on the road for a three-peat, you don't put Lendale White in on fourth down, you keep Reggie Bush in for 1 yard. You also got guys like Adrian Peterson coming right around this time that you could run around and play with, and college football itself is completely different with the domination of some of these backs like LaDainian Tomlinson. After USC's run came something that completely changed college football, which was the start of the SEC domination. Florida starts the streak winning, LSU wins, then Florida wins again. It's 7 straight national championships for the SEC. It starts Nick Saban's Alabama dynasty. You get Tim Tebow with Florida. You get Cam Newton. You can see how easy it is to recruit with one of those SEC schools because they're obviously not paying guys earlier than they should be. No matter what team you start as, you know that the end of the road is going to lead with the SEC. You're going to have to beat the SEC to win the championship in any of these 7 years. And imagine being able to play with like Julio Jones on Alabama and getting to see some of those Mark Ingram teams, or even Texas with Colt McCoy. 2010 for me is the start of when I watch college football. You can get Braxton Miller in there in 2011. Ohio State, that was the worst year of their history since I've been alive. So it's probably a pretty bleak point for me, but it's what got me into college football. All these SEC quarterbacks you could play with to try to beat Alabama too. You get Tebow and Cam Newton. It's absolutely insane to think that you can go up against Nick Saban with some of those names. And then you get Georgia, who's good with Matthew Stafford at this point too. Now, if you've ever watched this channel when I was doing a lot of shorts, you know I'm not an SEC guy. You know I'm more of a Big Ten guy. So eventually, after that, the BCS finally gave us what we wanted and gave us the college football playoff with 4 teams in it, which is the start of era number 4, which is the college football playoff starting in 2014. And you know Ohio State won that thing first. It was the first year of that new format. Ohio State sneaks in, beats Wisconsin. You can try to go back and stop that from happening if you're TCU or Baylor, who still didn't have a conference championship game to play in. Maybe if you're Alabama, you don't blow a 21-6 lead to Ohio State and let their wide receiver throw a touchdown pass right before halftime. You get more meaningful games late in the year, which is pretty cool to see. And this whole like 2014 on era, you get to see teams like 2019 LSU. You get to see that 4-year rivalry between Alabama and Clemson where they were just going back and forth every single year. This is right after or right during Johnny Manziel's Texas A&M, so that might be right at the last era too, but can't remember if he was playing in 2014 or not. But even if he wasn't, you got like Dak Prescott on Mississippi State. You got some of these other names like Jameis Winston, who was still there, Marcus Mariota, and obviously Derrick Henry on Alabama running people over. And since I'm limiting myself to 5 eras, I'm kind of skipping a couple years here, and era 5 would be the start of the 12-team playoff. which has only been 2 years, but if you're telling me that this is a feature coming out in 2 years, I'd be like, okay, let's start it here. But if we're just talking about if this game mode was in the game right now this year, then I have a different era for the honorable mention. So now we get to this 12-team playoff, which obviously we have NIL, transfer portal, at-large bids, home playoff games, automatic qualifiers, all these buzzwords that everyone's talking about. You get conference realignment with Texas and Oklahoma moving, Oregon, Washington, USC, UCLA, UCF going to the Big 12. Big 12 is revitalized. ACC has Stanford and Cal. New presentation, new rosters. Ohio State wins the first championship, as they did in the last era as well. And then obviously at the end, they're going to have an era for the current year. So I have that in as like an almost era, is like whatever the current year is. So we're in 2026 right now. Current year would be an era. It's kind of like 2K where they have the new one. But if you're looking at this and you're like, hey, there's a weird 10-year gap where you don't have like any era at all, I would agree with that and say that the one I would add is probably Georgia's mini dynasty. Maybe you start at like COVID year after that, because then Georgia wins 2 championships in a row and then they almost win a third, except for they dominate Florida State. I think they go something crazy like 35-1 or 35-2 over those 3 years. I could be totally wrong about that number, but they had to have almost gone 36-0 ish or 39-0. So it's probably like 37-2 or something like that. Back-to-back actual championships. Historic defense as well. Kirby Smart. This is the peak SEC era. And it could kind of work as like that Legion of Boom, like if you're in the NFL, like a little 2-year window. But think about the eras mode. It's like 10-year windows. It's like the Bird versus Magic Johnson. It's like Michael Jordan. It's like Kobe and Tim Duncan, and it's LeBron. So it's like 10 to 15-year windows of like domination before the next era. But the thing is with college football is these eras have to be like 5 years apart, because nobody was playing in each of these eras. So like the guy that's in 2014 is not going to be in the 2007 era just because you can't play college that long, which I think actually makes for this starting at 1998 pretty fluid. Now those would be my official 5 eras, which is 1998, USC, SEC, and like 2007, 2014 with the college football playoff, and then my 5th one is going to have to be the start of the 12-team playoff. Those are my 5, and the beauty of the eras mode is that EA could keep adding more over time. We could see these new guys that are going to continue to evolve, and like these new 15-year-olds that are going to be drafted in a couple years, and they could be introduced as college football evolves. Now, if EA only let you choose one additional era that I didn't mention, what would it be? Would it be Big Ten dominance in the last 3 years? Would it be Georgia's mini dynasty like I was talking about? Would you go back to something way back when you can go like Oklahoma, Texas, and Nebraska back when they're in that Big 12 together? Was it even called the Big 12? I don't know. But honestly, I think starting at the BCS is fine. Just give us something where we can go back and play with Tim Tebow and Johnny Manziel, even though Manziel would probably never sign up for that now. But with that being said, I could feel pretty comfortable that if this video does well, I'd love to do a Madden video as well. I mean, just imagine the possibilities of the Super Bowl era. You can go through so many teams and be like, that era would be great. And basically, the good thing is any of your teams that you're a fan of probably has their own era, unless you're like a Cardinals fan or a Browns fan, which is just great to be. But with that being said, do something nice for someone today, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.